Hey everybody, welcome to The Sword and Laser. I'm Veronica Belmont.
And I'm Tom Merritt.
Sword and Laser is a book club, but it is so much more. We bring you author interviews, news from the world of science fiction and fantasy, and of course, amazing discussions from fans just like you. But today we are very excited to welcome onto the show author Jim McDoniel, who just wrote, check it out, The Unattractive Vampire. Yay, congratulations and welcome to the show.
Thank you guys. Thank you for having me.
So technically today for you is published day. Your book is out officially today, but when this episode goes up, it will have happened a week before. But so how do you feel a week after?
A week after, I feel much better. Especially with everything being done and not having any more deadlines.
Yeah, that feels good. For sure. We are extra happy, of course, because An Unattractive Vampire was part of the Sword and Laser collection contest over on Inkshares. So I believe you are book number 2 out of the first round of picks. We had The Life Engineered was the first one that came out, and now your book. And then after this, we'll have Asteroid Made of Dragons.
Yep, that sounds right.
And you've got pretty good star ratings so far on Amazon. And enough of them that they are probably from not your mom.
Yes, actually I know for a fact that none of them are my mom. Hers got taken down.
It's good. No, really? Is that true?
Well, my mom and my dad both tried leaving a review, and because they did it from the same computer or the same email, they both got deleted. So I know for a fact none of them are my mom.
They got spam gated. That's amazing.
I wonder if they tried again at a later time, if it would work, or if they're basically just banned from Amazon for life.
I imagine the latter.
Okay, gotcha.
That's too bad. Well, they did it. They did it for you.
So yeah, we're very excited. But first, can you give us a rundown on how you came up with the idea of an ugly vampire? Which, I mean, all the vampires were and should be in the good old days, at least.
Yeah, basically it started with the first time I heard of a little book called Twilight, just a little popular novel.
Wait, what's it called again?
Twilight.
Twilight. Okay, good.
Like Twi'lek, but not.
Mm.
But yeah, I was in line at the Minneapolis Fringe Festival, and I was overhearing a woman who was a librarian talking to her friend about this thing called Twilight, where the vampires were sparkly, and that upset me so much that I went home and kind of rage Googled it, and basically I spent the entire evening looking up everything I could find about it, and then just probably a few weeks later I was walking around and I came up with a bit about a vampire being mistaken for a werewolf. And then, on that same walk, I just started, it started snowballing into other bits, and then the title came to me, and I decided, hey, this could be a book down the line.
Now, I think Twilight gets a bad rap out of proportion to the criticisms that you can legitimately have for it, and so, I mean, do you think, now that your rage Google has subsided and you've written An Unattractive Vampire, do you think there's a place for the sparkly vampire out there, and you're just reclaiming the heritage of vampires? Or are you still very much like, no, vampires really shouldn't look like that?
Oh, I mean, really, vampires shouldn't look like that. Honestly, it wasn't the sparkly bit that upset me so much as the being able to go into sunlight. That was the first time I had encountered vampires who could go into sunlight. I've since encountered a bunch, and being human and things like that. But that was my first exposure to that, and it was really that lack, because up until then that was the last vestige of old vampire lore that hadn't been discarded by stories. Oftentimes vampires will have I'm thinking in Blade, where they're no, crosses don't work, that's ridiculous. And then in other stories it's what, garlic? No, don't be stupid. That's just myth and legend. And so sunlight was the last vestige of, no, this is what a vampire is, and when that was gone, that just upset me.
So then you must have done a lot of research into historical vampires. I was about to say, I guess, fictional historical vampires and kind of what they do and what they don't do. Are there any things that we don't know about vampires that maybe perhaps have been lost to time?
Well, actually, one of the things I discovered about old vampires is that they weren't necessarily nocturnal. That was kind of something that came later with like stories about vampires. But I mean, there are lots of different kinds of blood-sucking creatures that get labeled under vampire, and it's fun to discover like little-known ones or like little-known facts of some. For example, and I did a little bit of brush up on my vampire-ness because I've been working on this for a while. So some of the research I did, I don't remember it all. But there was one type, I believe it was a Greek vampire. This was the most outrageous way of becoming a vampire, where it was if a red-headed boy peed on your grave, you became a vampire, and you became like this. Yeah, you became like this little, like, they described them as like ruddy and stout and kind of fat vampire.
This is more like anti-ginger sentiment, I think. This is coming from that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's, some, and I think, again, with the Greeks, if you were a redhead, you could just become a vampire because you were a redhead when you died.
Wow.
Yeah, I can imagine at funerals all the women with redheaded children, which obviously probably wasn't many people, which is the reason that they have all these weird myths about redheads. But being looked at and saying that, don't you dare let your child pee on this grave. We don't want another vampire outbreak.
We don't need any more vampires around these parts, buddy. Take it inside. So you mentioned that you've been working on this book for a really long time. How did you get started writing, and in particular this book? How long did it take you to go from idea in those heady Twilight days to finished product?
I mean, the idea I probably had about 8 years ago, and then I really didn't start, like, I kind of, like, fiddled with it, but I didn't think I had the patience for writing a novel back in those days. I didn't really start working on it until about 5 years ago, when I was going through not a great time in my life, and I just kind of decided, let's give this a try, and that's when I sat down and basically just started focusing on writing, and particularly writing this novel. So that was the end of 2010, beginning of 2011. I finished the first draft, and I finished through like a third draft that year, gave it to some people to read, got it back, did a few more drafts on that, then started submitting to agents. Got rejections. Probably took about a year off working on other things, and then gave it to another friend. Did more drafts, and then started resubmitting it again. Got lots more rejections, and was about to give up when I heard at work the Sword and Laser podcast announcing the Inkshares contest.
So is that what got you into Inkshares? Was hearing about it on Sword and Laser?
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm assuming that it wasn't just our compelling description and personalities. When you went to investigate, like what convinced you? Like, yeah, Tom and Veronica aren't just blowing steam. This is a good idea. I want to run with this.
Well, I mean, a lot of it was like you guys, and the fact like I've been a fan for a while now, so like I trust you guys that you wouldn't steer me wrong.
Your first mistake, Jim. First mistake.
And I was hesitant because, you know, initially it did sound a bit like self-publishing, and I know for a fact I'm very introverted and not very tech-savvy, and not very good at self-promotion, so, like, self-publishing was not going to be for me. But, you know, I looked at the Inkshares proposal and the fact that it was, you know, they're like, no, we'll actually do editing for you and things like that. And then just like asking my friends what I should do, and them saying like, don't be stupid, sign up, you know, do this now, do this yesterday. So I think it was like 2 days later I had my Inkshares page up. Yeah, and the rest is history.
And so at that point, how much of the book had you written? Was it basically done because you've been passing it around to friends and sending it to publishers? Was it a completely finished novel at that point?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was in like my 8th draft at that point, so it was a complete manuscript. Yeah, I thought it was a complete manuscript until I reached the developmental edit process through Inkshares, and they said, maybe change all of these things.
They are very good editors, though, so that's nice.
And
very
that's
nice.
a good question. I'd like you to talk a little more about that because I think it was one of the things that surprised me, and I'm not sure a lot of people realize this, that Inkshares is not just doing self-publishing. They're doing all of the things that a traditional publisher does, including PR and promotions and stocking, and that developmental edit. Describe a little bit more about that process.
Well, I mean, the developmental edit, I sent my manuscript as it was, so in like 8th, 9th draft, to Girl Friday Productions, who is the production company that Inkshares works with. They gave me a developmental editor. Her name is Lindsay Robinson, I believe. And like basically didn't hear back for like a couple weeks, maybe a month, and then she sent it back with all of these notes, suggestions, some hard cuts, some hard suggestions to make the narrative simpler. I had to cut out a lot of like entire plot points. I had to write whole new chapters in some cases. One chapter got thrown right back in that had been cut previously, but because of other cuts I had made, I needed to put it back. And so sent it back, and then had like a week to do. She sent more notes, and then I had a week to do like final updates, which was a lot of fun, especially considering a lot of my Inkshares deadlines seem to coincide with grad school deadlines.
Oh my gosh!
And so there were some literally sleepless nights in which I was up the entire night writing this.
Right, because they had a pretty specific schedule on when they wanted edits to be done, so they could then, work on the next thing. So the next thing being the next part of the process and getting your book finished. So it's not like you just put that off for too long, because they got to do their jobs too.
Right.
Scary. Oh, that's intense. What are you going to grad school for?
Writing.
Oh, perfect.
Yep.
Could you use this as your thesis paper?
Unfortunately, no. I think it has to be something entirely new.
Well, and so what I was going to ask you, besides An Unattractive Vampire, had you been developing other stories? And obviously, if this is what you're going to grad school for, you definitely have other writing projects. But what other kinds of things have you written over the years?
Well, I mean, I started off getting into writing through playwriting, through theater. I was a theater major, which is also part of the reason I'm going to grad school for writing, because I can't get a writing job with a theater degree. So I started off writing plays, none of which were ever produced. And then from plays, I wrote a series of essays / parody advice columns as a mad scientist. And then I did a lot of sketch and improv after that. And then from there moved on to audio drama. And I've been doing that for almost as long as I've been working on the novel. So probably about 6 or 7 years. And then I also started writing novels in that time. I've got another one that's in like a 3rd draft. So that'll be next after this one.
I know
Tell us a little more
Inkshares.
about the audio drama.
Yeah, I was going to say this ties into my question, which was that I know Inkshares doesn't really cover audiobooks as part of their contract. So since you're so interested in audio dramas, is that something you want to do with An Unattractive Vampire?
I honestly hadn't thought of it until someone I'm going to speak now. My friends who do
While talking about audio drama,
right.
Obviously, it's going to throw you off. My
friends who work with me on our audio drama show put put up my book on Tumblr, and one of our fans asked, "Oh, will there be an audiobook?" And that was the first time I had thought of that, and I went, "Oh, I guess that is something I might think of doing." I will not be reading it, though. No, that won't happen.
Not interested.
Do you speak on the drama, though?
I do, but that's not what I like to focus on. I much prefer to focus on my writing for the show.
So tell us about the audio drama. What's it about?
It's called Our Fair City. It's basically a dystopian future set in what was once Hartford, Connecticut.
I know that place. I was born there. Tell me more. I'm interested now. Extra interested.
Well, it's climate change has occurred and made everything a frozen wasteland, and the only thing that survives is an insurance company that has become the de facto government.
It's not Travelers. Is it Travelers? Is it Aetna?
No, it's the Hartford.
Is it Cigna?
It's called, we call it Heart Life so we don't get sued.
Nice.
And there's, so there's corporate satire, there's mad science, there's mole people, there's a meat wall. Yeah.
I love it. I love this idea. I'm so excited. I'll definitely give that a listen.
Our Fair City. Got it.
Our Fair City. Perfect. That's really great. That's fun. I know that kind of thing is a lot of work too from experience. So it's got to be something that adds a few more extra hours to your workload every week.
Every once in a while. Like right now, we just sat down to start writing actually the final season. We've been going for 7 seasons. We have 7 seasons done. 7th season will start being released in May, and then we're going to start working on the 8th season right now.
Awesome. Did you have to go to Hartford for research?
No. Well, one of our the creator and head writers from that area, so he already knew all about it.
Okay. Well, we should do a tour sometime. I'm only home usually around Christmas time, but we can do a walking tour of all the places you've destroyed in your audio drama.
in our first city. So you probably are, I feel like you're the kind of guy who's going to think that this question is odd, especially since this is your very first novel. But there are lots of folks out there that are in that stage you were several years back with an idea in their heads and not sure they have time and patience to get started. What would you say to people who are like, well, I kind of want to write a story, I want to write a novel, but I don't know how to get started yet?
I mean, I would say just do it. I mean, that's pretty much the easy one. It's hard to stay motivated. What I would recommend is listening to author interviews like this one. I know I was listening while writing this to a lot of things. I listened to like Neil Gaiman interviews, particularly his one on The Nerdist was really good.
I see. Interesting. He does The Nerdist, huh? Good for him. Good for Chris Hardwick.
He did The Nerdist. And also lots of interviews on The Sword and Laser as well.
It's an okay show. It's no Nerdist.
That's okay. It's all right.
You know. I mean,
they can't get Neil Gaiman, but whatever. I mean,
they haven't been nominated for a Hugo, have they?
Not yet.
No, they haven't.
No.
I shouldn't throw that into the universe.
Thank you.
But like lots of things like that. I also listened to or read Russell T Davies' book on writing the last season of Doctor Who. And he said some things in there, and basically you take all that in and then find the things that apply to you, so that you can point to them and be like, see, that person does it, I can do it too. Also, I recommend going to a bookstore and looking at all of the awful things that managed to get published, like celebrity memoirs and things like that.
Encourage yourself, yeah.
Yeah, just be like, hey, they got a book. I'm way better of a writer than them.
Yes.
I can do this.
Actually, I have done that to make myself feel better about the idea of writing a book. I'm like, there's some pretty bad books out here. I could probably do better. Maybe not, who knows. But speaking of books, what else are you reading lately if you have any time between grad school and wrapping up this project?
Not a lot. I just, this is probably something I should have done before writing this book, I just started reading Carmilla, which is the female vampire story from that predates Bram Stoker's.
Wow.
So my goal is I'm in my finals week. I actually have 2 final papers due tomorrow and Thursday. So then I have my week spring break. So I'm going to try and finish that. I just got the Charlie Jane Andrews book that you guys said witches and mad science, and I was there. So I hope to be reading that very soon, and then J.F. DeBoe's The Life Engineered after that. That's the order of my reading.
Sounds like a pretty spectacular to-read list for sure. Did you know that Tom and I were in a History Channel show about vampires many years ago?
I was going to bring that up earlier. I forgot, yeah.
I did not know that.
Yes, Tom and I did which was being produced by Tom's wife, Eileen, with a production company. She was one of the producers, right?
She was associate producer, I think.
Yeah, one of the producers. And
she was line producer.
So we got roped in, and I got to be Virgin number 5, who was I was being given over to Madame Bathory, Elizabeth Bathory, to keep her young so she could bathe in my blood. And Tom was a doctor that found a victim of a vampire that was running loose in London. Is that right?
That was a French doctor.
A French doctor. Okay, sorry. So a vampire in Paris.
And Josh Lawrence, who helps moderate our forum and compose the Sword Laser theme song, was my assistant.
Oh, there you go. So we all have strange vampire ties these days.
I might have seen that.
It's called
Vampire Secrets?
Vampire Secrets. I think it's on my IMDb page.
And the best part about it that I remember was the psychic vampires. The people who not even being accused, but avowedly said, "Oh yeah, no, I don't suck blood. I draw energy off of people."
I'm almost positive that I've seen this.
Holy crap.
And based some of the novel on having
That's amazing.
You can laugh because they show it they used to show it every Halloween on History Channel.
Sure it's in the
I haven't heard it
anymore, but
I haven't heard people mentioning it recently, but you can probably find it on Netflix somewhere, the deepest pits of Netflix. Yeah, the Pirate Bay. I don't even own a copy. I don't even have one.
I have this is how old it is. I think I have a DVD-ROM of it somewhere.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I like how we made this about us, but Jim, thank you very much for all your hard work on this project. The book is so funny and so well written and so clever, and it really touches on all those things that I think make people annoyed about modern vampires and kind of gives it a kick in the ass, and I think we all appreciate that.
All right,
so what's next from you?
Again, I'm working on another novel that will hopefully happen. Whether or not I do that with Inkshares, or especially with the new contests coming out, because as much as I love Sword and Laser, I also love Meet Geek and Sundry. So if they do a contest that's like urban fantasy, I might have to try that, even if I don't think the manuscript is ready, because pretty much everything I watch TV-wise right now is Geek and Sundry. Other than that,
we'll share with Felicia. That's fine.
That's all right.
Other than that, working on the new next season of the audio drama. I have short stories that I have to write for classes. So if you guys ever do another anthology, I have stories. Let's see. Anything else? I have to get to work on I'm working on a kind of horror comedy web series that might eventually happen as soon as I finish all the scripts for it. So yeah, that'll be a thing, and hopefully lots of other things.
It sounds like you're keeping busy for sure. Where can everyone keep up with you online?
I'm at Jim McDoniel on Twitter. I have a website, jimmcdoniel.com. The website for the audio drama is www.ourfaircity.com, and that's also available on iTunes. And I mean, I have like a Facebook presence. I have a Facebook authors page. I also have a personal page, but don't try and friend me on that because I won't accept you.
Personal space, people. Personal space.
Probably just follow me on Twitter. I post there a lot, so that's the easiest.
All right. Well, Jim McDoniel. See, I got to say your name right, at least at the very end. An Unattractive Vampire, available now, guys. Go out and get it on Amazon and wherever books are sold. We are so excited and so proud of this particular book. And, yeah, best of luck for the future. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, guys.